Hello, everyone. It's 18th October. Uh, Welcome to the very first meeting of Epic Work Items Migration Working Group. So, to introduce those who are seeing the recording and want to get in the know-how of what it is about. So, Plan Stage has been working on getting the work items platform ready and enable it to support all the legacy object types to be transitioned to work items. Epics being one of it. So the idea is that we want to eventually have issues, epics, and pretty much the rest of the similar objects migrated to work items. And to accelerate that plan, we are starting by first migrating epics to work items. It's a massive undertaking which requires a focused working group that will be taking care of this migration on a technical level from different aspects, from the database, from the backend implementation, from the front end implementation. We have set up a stage level working group, which is slightly different from company-wide working groups that you may have seen at GitLab. So stage level working groups are focused on these initiatives which are executed at the stage level, and they have product backing instead of C-level sponsorship as it is mentioned in the handbook. So all the team members who are part of this working group will be volunteering in helping get this initiative across the finish line. And in this first meeting, we'll be discussing the exit criteria of what the working group, the stage working group is going to work on, and how we can divide individual tasks across the multiple stages that we have planned as a part of exit criteria. Uh, I'll be posting a link in the description regarding the working group itself. So you can take a look at the working group as well as any status updates that happen around it. So yeah, so to kick things off, first of all, thanks a lot for everyone who has volunteered to work on this initiative. I can see Heinrich has also joined, which is probably too late for him to join, so very appreciated. As far as this meeting time is concerned, so I was obviously having a hard time in scheduling this call that works for pretty much everyone else, particularly folks who are in Southeast Asia and in APAC region specifically. So while we want to minimize number of meetings that we have around this initiative, I feel that we can still use weekly meetings at least for next 1 month. So if this current time works for everyone else, I can schedule a recurring meeting on every Wednesday, at least for next 4 to 5 weeks, while we get the thing started. And once we reach a point where we feel that we can work asynchronously without having this recurring meeting in place, we can not have the meetings. But in any case, in any week, if you feel that there isn't anything to discuss in the agenda and we have things pretty much on autopilot, then we can obviously cancel the meeting. So I'll be creating an invite for the meeting after our call and inviting all the members who are invited in this meeting itself and get it going. As far as status updates for the activities that this working group will be doing, I'll create an issue for status update, much like how we did for OKRs. So for the team members who have worked on OKRs in the past, they may have seen that we had a weekly updating issue in place where anyone can take a look at what was the progress from past week and what we are going to work on next. And if there are any demos to be done in either of the team meetings, we'll have a similar issue in place for status update regarding this work group activities as well. As for any synchronous discussions, we are going to continue to use existing Slack channels, particularly work item channel. We have had discussions on that channel around work items anyway, so we are going to continue to use that. And there is also a meeting format template that I have put in. It is similar to what we have for Plan Weekly, but if you feel that we can update the template to be more specific around the tasks that we are doing as a working group, feel free to make adjustments there. And yeah, I'm going to open it up. And Felipe, if you want to start with highlighting some of the items based on our discussion that happened last time around, particularly around what are the immediate blockers that we can focus on upfront. If there are any things that we should perhaps pick up in 16.6 itself, so that we can get the database synchronization or anything else started around it, feel free to go ahead and kick off.
All right, I think the first point I talked about was it's about the API endpoints and how they should be deprecated, because once Epic starts living at group level as work items, they will not have the same ID, stuff like that. So we discussed this. I see you had an answer, so if you want to talk about it.
So, Jan, you mentioned that as far as like copying tables is concerned, like what level of data that we are looking to synchronize between the tables, and if there are any caveats around it. So, mind elaborating around it?
Yeah, first I was saying about the API level, and like I said, once we migrate epics to work items, the ID won't be the same. So GraphQL, REST APIs, they will at some point stop working after like the whole migration happens. So I was talking about how this is going to be handled, what will be the process. And I think you said that we need to support this as long as the API, the REST API is available. So I think that was your answer. And another thing, some challenges we had, I'd like to talk about some challenges we had with requirements. And this was a question from Jan. I think we will talk about this later. Syncing required a lot of backend code on services and things like that. And also it creates a lot of noise in the code, and requires some additional step like cleaning up old code that was introduced to keep the objects in sync. And
I'm
also,
sorry, I didn't catch the last bit. Could you please repeat the part with sensing services, if I got it right?
yeah, for the requirements, I saw you asked on which level we want to keep the object in sync, the B modular service. And for requirements, we did it on services because it requires additional steps, like it also performs other tests like parsing quick actions, creating system nodes, and a lot of other stuff that I don't recall right now. And this created a lot of noise in the code because we had to put callbacks on various services like update service, move service, create service, destroy service, and all those services need to have some kind of callback to keep the sync going on. And it was a challenge to clean it up later.
Thanks for clarification.
So just a
So
question,
yeah, that's
like, are we?
from my side. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just wondering if like, are we 100% like decided already on doing the syncs? So because like, if we decide on like automatically moving all epics to work items, then we have no choice but to sync, right? Because rolling deploys and all that, and like the data has to be in two places, and then there's like a switch over or a feature flag or whatever where users just see it. And yeah, so we don't have a choice but to sync, right? Do we have another option? I was thinking like another option would be like just keeping epics as legacy thing, and we have like one button there, like migrate to the new feature or something. Then we do this one-time migration for the single group or single hierarchy or something. So we don't have to do the sync. Is that like a viable path?
I don't know. I think this is a question for Kushal. I think this could be nice, and it saves a lot of work and a lot of background migrations and syncing stuff and everything. But from the product side, I'm not sure what is the plan. So maybe this is a question for Kushal.
Yeah, so the reason why we thought about syncing in first place is to make sure that our existing REST APIs around epics continue to be available as it is, because the biggest roadblock right now from the API perspective is lack of REST API for work items. Not to mention that we do not have certain GraphQL APIs as well around work items, particularly for roadmap and for boards. So for instance, for existing apps like Epic's board or roadmap, both of them are using different set of GraphQL queries, which are specific to Epics, but are to support boards along with the lists and reordering and filtering lists, etc. Similarly, on roadmap as well, we have queries which are built on top of existing Epics to support for rendering roadmap and the features of roadmap. So if we were to translate those queries on work items, while we can build dedicated GraphQL queries for work items, REST API would still be a problem. And we have a couple of large customers who are interested in adding new features to REST API, let alone keeping the REST API around. So even if, for instance, on UI, we can, the thing that I thought as far as this transition was concerned is that on UI, on GitLab.com, if someone is using GitLab's interface to access migrated epics, they would obviously be seeing work items view, and underneath we would be using all the newer queries that we have introduced as a part of work item, be it for group level listing page or individual epics. But the moment if someone is looking to access that same data via our APIs, we want to make sure that our existing APIs are kept around as far as V4 public API is concerned. Like if we introduce V5, then that's a different question. Jan did some work around developing REST APIs using GraphQL, but that was a POC. And that was before AI enablement borrow happened. So the work that was done around it was fairly experimental. It didn't reach a point where we can safely start working on building REST APIs on top of work items. But as long as work items do not get REST API, there is no way around it, and we need to continue supporting REST APIs. But Amanda, I can elaborate in terms of like, based on our large customers, how much traction for them is regarding our Epic's REST API and whether they can do without Epic's REST API available. I assume answer would be no, but yeah, if in case you want to elaborate.
Yeah, I would say it's more than just our large customers. I mean, the REST API is the most commonly adopted API for, at least for Epics, that I'm aware of. And I don't mind looking at that path, but it's not something that we can migrate without supporting for the short term.
Just a minor update on the REST API. Before the AI enablement work, I spent some time with creating a wrapper which builds automatically REST API on top of GraphQL. And basically, there was rather positive acceptance from API working group. So technically, there is no there, and it seemed to be feasible to use it. So it should be possible to define the REST API for work items this way. So it shouldn't be a blocker, this part. But my understanding is that even if we would add REST API for work items, we still need to keep REST API for epics for backward compatibility.
So in that case, if we so assuming that we don't have a way around this and we have to go with the copying over of data, what is preventing us from setting up synchronization, say in 16.6? Like, are there any obvious blockers in terms of things missing? I understand that we have certain widgets which are simply not available fully yet on work item side that are there on the epics. But if we were to, so yeah, like you mentioned, that we would still need to keep a thin epics table around to make sure that our existing IIDs and ID references work along with our REST APIs. So would it be possible to have at least the table syncing established already while we wait for widget parity to be in place, so that we are not blocked by progress of, say, stage 1 of our exit criteria and get started with stage 2 in parallel with stage 1? Because that was one of the concerns in the MR that we opened for working group, that we want the ability to work on multiple stages simultaneously rather than going in a chronological fashion where we first fully close stage 1 before moving to stage 2. So are there any tasks in stage 2 or 3 that we can pick up before we wait for stage 1 completion?
So First of all, I wanted to point out that keeping this thin epic record is rather the final phase or stage when we are done with this migration. I was assuming that it was already decided that we will do this synchronization during the migration. And my understanding of this process was that first we start with creating work items record for when epic is created, and then we iteratively start synchronizing more and more stuff together with this work item, but it will still be hidden on work item side in listing or being able to create it or update it through the work item API. So it will still be possible to just use the legacy epic object through epic API. And once we think that we are ready, we will expose it as also through work item API, and we will be able to disable the attributes on epic record side when we start using the new work item object. So I would expect that during this preparation phase, we should be able to start with synchronizing the work item record and iteratively start adding syncing of all the widget data we need, as long as we disable creation or update of the work through the work item API. So, yeah.
So Donald, I believe that given that epic work item types are already can be created at a group level, we don't have the listing page route in place yet, right? Like if someone visits group level issues, then they are seeing all the work item types, including the ones which were created at the group level, right?
No, not so that we have a separate POC route, and Heinrich can probably answer this better than I can, but we have a separate route right now that we're just using to test out group level epic work items. And then Heinrich is working on adding group level work items to the legacy group level issue list.
Okay. And so for instance, if we are creating epic work item type today, what happens to the widget data? Like obviously it would be a work item object underneath, but it would still be mapped against. So if we were to, for example, copy over that data to Epic's table, would that be possible today, or it wouldn't be?
It's not set up today to do that. Right now, it's just adding it to the issues table. Yeah, however we decide to sync, if we decide to sync,
Okay.
That's when it'll be added to the epics table.
Okay, and we don't have the create view available for vanilla work items yet, right?
So we have the ability in the UI to create a work item or group level epic work item.
We do,
but not the separate create page. Yeah, it's just a add-on to the to that POC or experimental group level work item list. Kong, what's the URL for that, or if you want to share that within plan stage? Cool.
Okay, so from here we can so creating epics is similar to creating OKRs, where you can start creating from the listing page itself. But is this the way we want to move ahead, or this is just a POC that we want to create?
No, that's not the way we want to move forward.
Okay.
We're going to start implementing that from the create workflow, the create work items workflow issue, and we'll start working on that in 16.6 probably.
Okay. Yeah. So last 10 minutes. I want to at least get some of the takeaway items in terms of how we can get to a point where we can have table synchronization in place and identify immediate roadblocks. So off the top of your head, Felipe, have you identified any immediate roadblocks that you think we need to resolve first just to get the table synchronization in place besides the availability of all the widgets on the work items?
I don't see any roadblocks. Just a question. This link that was shared, it's creating an app because already as a work item. So they share no chat here from Kong. So
Yeah,
yes,
it creates an issue.
All right.
Basically an issue with a nil project ID, but with a namespace ID, basically.
But it has the work item type as Epic.
Yes.
All right, so I think that would be the first roadblock, but as this is solved, I think I can't think of any blocks that keep us from creating, like syncing the creation of epics as a work item. I mean, in issues table.
I think one thing I see, like not really a total blocker, but I think one thing we want to do before like starting to sync records from the epics table is to make sure we have all the columns available in the issues table, or because one example is like the field color for epics, right? We don't have the color field in the issues table or some associated table. So I think we don't want to sync epics to issues without the color and then next time having to go through all the epics all over again to fill in the color, right? So it would be like iterating over all epics again. So we probably might want all the fields to be available. Some are, I think most are already available, right? Like this labels, you could just insert the label links and source targets is the same. I think the main one would be the ones I could think of is color, and then the date thing. The date thing is a special feature in epics, like the inherit date thing. So yeah, top of my head, those are the fields that are missing.
Yeah, this is interesting, but this leads to another question. Do we want these columns to exist at work items table, or do we want this data as a separate widget, or maybe use the old epics table as a proxy to have these features like color and what you're saying? Maybe you could turn this old epic object into a widget or something. So yeah, this is important. Yeah, we need to figure out how to have the same properties of an epic.
So regarding date inheritance, I believe that we are to determine yet how the date rollups would work, right, Amanda? Because I believe we are not going with the existing behavior of influencing start and due dates on epics from the child issue milestones.
We are. For migration, we're just keeping parity. We were originally going to try to improve it, but based on dates, we're just going to keep parity.
Okay. So in that case, it ends up being a hard blocker where we need to make sure that if there's a child work item in the hierarchy widget which has a milestone present, then that milestone can influence start and due dates of a parent work item itself. Because then it might be possible to unblock from the dates perspective. So I see you mentioned that colors is not something that we want to use as a hard blocker, but yeah, like backfilling might be a challenge later on. So if we ignore color column for now and maybe introduce a widget instead for it, and look at the dates itself, which is like a more pressing widget type for epics, then what we can do is today we can perhaps have child work items which have milestones in the hierarchy widget, influence start and due dates on the parent work item, and get that functionality going so that it unblocks us from the dates perspective, and then identify next steps towards the migration. Would that sound reasonable, Heinrich?
Yeah, I think adding the dates feature is something eventually we'd want to have, right? Because when epics become like a work item, then we need that feature there. So I think starting to work on that would be good, though it is kind of complex, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, because right now we have start and due dates, but those are like fairly simple fields. We do not have any option to choose between dates coming from milestone versus the fixed date, much like what we have on the Epic side. And I don't think we have even the designs for it if we were to introduce a similar UX on work items, where user can just look at the start date and select a radio option, much like what we have for Epics. So I think in terms of next steps, what we can do is, first of all, figure out a way to have hierarchy widget influence parent work item date. Let that behavior be part of OKRs, just that it won't be showing up for objectives and key results now, because that's not the functionality we want to have on OKRs. But given that hierarchy widgets are available on OKRs as of now, we can start from there, have the start and due dates, have the child work items influence start and due dates for the parent work item, and then work with product design to get the designs for start and due date widget itself determined, like where we want to place that radio option to select fixed date versus milestone date for the child items. Once those two steps are, once those two tasks are completed, I think it will unblock us in fair amount in terms of getting the table synchronization in place. And then we can determine whether we want to introduce a new widget on work item just for color. I see a value for it for vanilla work items as well. Like right now, the color field itself is only available on on Epics. But if we introduce it on the work item widget itself, then it might be very useful. So we can think about it later. But yeah, I think dates would be the pressing item. So here's what I'll do. I'll create an issue for this and then see if we can have at least the spike for it done within 16.6, so that we can schedule something from the backend perspective, perhaps in 16.7. If it looks to be trivial enough that we can squeeze it in 16.6 itself, that would be nice. But yeah, I think working through start and due dates would be a good first step. Anything else around it?
Quick question on that.
Yeah.
We already have start and due date on work items as widgets. So do you want to create whole new widgets for this, or just change those to be inheritable?
Yeah, so we need to elevate those widgets, perhaps expand it to include an ability to have the dates inheriting from the child work items.
Yeah, and also we are missing, so we have designs for this. We're also missing the toggle of inherit versus fixed.
Yes.
So we're just expanding the existing widget, not creating a
Yep.
new one. And I just want to call out, Kushal, that we're not planning on having colors on the work item record moving forward.
Okay.
It will only be available for where you can view it, like boards and roadmaps. So maybe a widget is a little bit more than we need.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So in that case, if we already have design issue, then I'll ping you on the backend issue that I create for this, Amanda, and you can link design issue there as well, so we can know how the inheritance work. And yeah. So I think we are at time, and yeah.
But a quick question, just did we discount the Heinrich's suggestion to explore copying data without syncing, or are we going with syncing?
We would have to go with syncing, because even if new epics are created directly on work items table, not having those epic work items available in the legacy epics table means REST APIs will not be fetching those records.
I think Donald also brought a very good point there in the doc, like this, because people won't be switching over until they have the features they need, right? So it's kind of like stalls them from using the new work item view until we get all the features ready, and which could be a very long time. So yeah, because once you do the one-time migrate, then you're kind of locked into the new version, which has less features, and you're kind of stuck in the situation. So
okay, cool, thanks. I just didn't hear a decision originally.
Yeah. Yeah, and having a copying of data should make it much easier for any user who wants to opt out temporarily while we are still refining the experience, much like we did for navigation. So
one more question: how big concern is that Epic work items will be showing up in work items API list? If I understand it correctly, we don't hide or we don't have a way to hide it there, do we?
yeah, so I believe Heinrich is working on introducing filter for it, and we are going to use perhaps same query for Epic's route on group level, which will fetch work items filtered by Epic's type, and then that should allow us to not show Epics in places where they aren't supposed to show.
Sorry, I meant GraphQL API listing, not the list page in UI.
Yeah, right now it's in the list page. It's basically our front end dictating which types to show, right? So we have like on this issue list, we exclude epics. So on the API level, I don't know if it's, does it really matter if we allow users to see these extra records? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters. It's rather a product question or manager
in my
question.
opinion, as long as users can isolate the record type from the API, I think it's fine to show it or to include it.
Not just the API, but the list view also. But I mean, it's already kind of confusing to click on the issues and see all the types.
For post-migration of epics, we need the issues and epic lists to remain separate with an ultimate goal of having them all displayed in the future. So we need to filter them out of
We
the
filter
issues
out some
list.
types already, right? No?
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
already.
Yeah,
So-
UI is not a problem. We have a tooling for it, but on API level, I believe that we still list all types without any filtering.
Yes, I don't think we have anything restricting that. Should we? I mean, even restrict the creation of epics until the feature is ready, or put it behind a feature flag? Yeah, because the type is there, so anyone can fetch the work item type ID for Epic and then create one through the GraphQL API, and then looking at the resolvers, we can fetch them. So not sure if that would be a problem when we actually get them in sync. I mean, we would have to do one syncing job to sync from epics to work items, and then if we have any epics created on the issues table, we would have to do the same on the opposite direction. So maybe we should prevent creating epics for now, or put it behind the feature flag namespace level.
Yeah. I was thinking that to avoid bidirectional syncing, it would make sense to disable creation or update from the work item side.
And we are doing that now in the API with
right.
tasks.
Though right now we have like also records already in the DB from our testing, right, for epics.
Right.
So
Probably
these I don't know if we need to sync this back to the epics table or something, but
Right, but maybe just to be sure. I mean, right now probably it's just us, but I don't know if maybe someone will create them. And Donald, no, I don't think we prevent creating tasks either. So
Through the
people
REST
can
API?
create. Oh, the REST API? Yes. No, they cannot create through the REST API, but users can do it through the GraphQL API.
Oh, okay. So are we saying we want to prevent creation of
any
I guess
epic,
that might be
probably.
Yeah, because that might be what that makes sense. If we
Better
have
now
syncing.
than later. Yeah. So maybe right now we already have some. I mean, I know we have some created by us, but even if someone created an epic through the GraphQL API just for testing purposes or playing around, we are still in a stage where we can say we are not migrating those. I mean, we are not keeping those in sync with the legacy epics. So probably just to be safe, we should, as Jan said, prevent the creation of epics through any API. on the work items, I mean, issues table. I mean, behind a feature flag. So only we can do it for testing purposes or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but it's still, all of that is still behind the beta GraphQL flag, right? So
Which
people
one?
that
Because
all work
creating work
items
items,
in the GraphQL
I don't think it
API?
is. No, creating work items is not behind the feature flag. No,
Not a
not
feature
anymore.
flag, but I forget what it's
Oh,
called in
beta,
GraphQL, the beta flag.
alpha.
Yeah,
Yes,
alpha, yeah.
that is true. So if we can, because of that, we can allow creating of epics at the issues table, then that should be fine. But not sure if that's enough to then not sync them to the legacy epics. I guess that's true, because yeah, creating work items, the whole work items API is in alpha right now.
Somebody could have created it anyway on self-hosted, right? They could enable the flag and have created a bunch. We would never know.
No, I mean, alpha doesn't even get gated by a feature flag. I mean, it just is documented as alpha, but even in .com, they can use the alpha queries to in this case, create an epic on the issues table. So that's the question. Should we prevent that? Or because it's in alpha, we just let people do it if they do it, and then just ignore thinking in that direction. I mean, these epics in the issues table to the epics table.
Yeah, so that is obviously an open question, so we can discuss it async as
Yep.
well. And I think first roadblock is obviously around the dates. So I'll create the necessary next steps for it. But yeah, thanks a lot everyone to make it to the call, and I'll be sending invites for recurring meetings starting next week. Hopefully the timing will work for most of us. So yeah, thanks a lot, and have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.